Well, hey there, guys. Brando's World here. Back here again, doing another video on the old electric hedge trimmer, the Black & Decker 16-inch electric hedge trimmer, and I wanted to talk about some of the reasons I love this old trimmer. Now, so I talked about before some of the different specs on this. I really had come around to where I found out just a few things on this, and I looked up this particular model number 8124. As it says, you might be able to see it right here. It was an 8124 Type 8, was made in probably the late 80s. Which it only made sense because, as I told you, I was born in 1988. When I was a child in the early 90s, I always remember everybody, it seemed, had these, including my dad had one of those at the time. Now, I wanted to just talk about some of the cool things about this trimmer that I always personally had, I've come to really appreciate. I bought my dad a battery powered with the 40-volt lithium-ion 24-inch Black & Decker hedge trimmer a couple years ago for Father's Day. My brother and I went in on it, bought it for him at Menards. And I'm always going to favor using a battery-operated hedge trimmer if I can over an old electric one, because here's the thing, if you think about that, you're obviously a lot more mobile because you don't have to worry about running out of cord, and you don't have to worry about clipping the extension cord or anything like that. You can just pretty well go wherever you want with it. Now, as I go on thinking about it more, some of the nice things about these, I'm always going to just favor that mobility of those, the battery-operated hedge trimmers, especially if you do, you have a fairly big yard and you don't think you could always get near an outlet. But there are some good things that I really love about this old hedge trimmer, and one of those things is it's very lightweight. And even with the extension cord attached, I can pick this thing up with only one hand, and it's really nice. Another thing I love, you see my hand right now on this wraparound handle. Those were really convenient, ergonomically good, and it works really, really well. As far as being able to control it with both hands, and I can't hold it with both hands right now because all I'm using to do this video is my smartphone, and I don't have a tripod that I can do it with. Now, another thing that I think about with it that I really like is the on-off switch, the trigger on this thing. It does, for safety, the only real safety feature that it has is the trigger guard. As you can see right here, it's got just like you have on a shotgun, so that it would be tough to come, underneath it and accidentally start the trigger, or have a kid go on playing around with it and be able to start it. But the one that I got my dad for Father's Day that year, it has a lockout so that when you have the trigger in the off mode, it locks up, and you couldn't just simply pull that and have it, start and engage the electric motor in it. It basically, that it's one of those dummy features again where, kids come up on it, they don't just accidentally start it up. And believe me, while I wouldn't want any kind of a safety issue like having a kid cut their finger off to occur, I'm the only one that uses this kind of thing, and I know I'm going to be responsible with it. The other thing I really liked about this was the on-off switch on the trigger had this lock-on feature. You can see right here it says push to lock on. I'll just show you. And that comes in really handy when you're trying to trim shrubbery and you got to get a distance from it and you can't hold both hands on it at one time, or you're just going to be continuously using the trimmer for quite some time. The motor housing, it's all plastic. It's double insulated. I think I've talked about that in other videos. And meaning that the double insulated process is that it has both all the external housing is plastic, the switch, all of that, but the wiring inside is rubber or plastic coated, supposed to doubly prevent you from ever getting an electric shock of any kind. That being said, these aren't safe to be going out trimming the shrubs in the rain. You don't want to do that. And then the only other thing though where I really featured that particular trimmer of my dad's that's battery operated. This is only a 16-inch blade. That one's 24. That makes a big difference in how long it takes, how well you can get to certain areas of the bush at one time. It could be the difference between needing a ladder and not needing a ladder, what have you. Stuff like that's kind of important to me. So, and like I said, now where can you really use this trimmer at and what applications? The only thing I can really think of is, it's a homeowner's hedge trimmer. It just has some light shrubbery, maybe a privacy hedge that's fairly small. Not a real big privacy hedge, just some bushes, what have you. Stuff like that. If you are a lawn and garden landscaper and you trim bushes professionally every day, it's really not designed for that. And one thing that was never going to be conducive to that is you couldn't always expect all your customers to have a plug close enough to your workstation that you're going to be able to get to with all your extension cords. So how would you get around that back then? Well, at some point you would be able to bring a gas-powered hedge trimmer if you wanted. Now, I've never really been in favor of gas-powered hedge trimmers. They're really heavy and they're two-stroke, although they do have all the power you're ever going to need for the job. I really have always felt like, they just were never going to have. So your only other option with one of these is always have a generator on you to plug into, and that requires gas. So, but these were just made for a homeowner that was going to be able to use it full time, and you're only going to use the bushes once or twice a year. For the most part, these things were pretty long lasting. Like I've said before, they were pretty bulletproof. The way they operated was just a simple brush and armature motor where the brushes, the two leads that contact off the commutator that spun the coil, spins the gears for the oscillating teeth to move back and forth. Like I said, that's about the only way that this baby actually worked. And if something did go wrong, what I actually always used to do with another one of these that I had is, every couple of seasons before I would ever use them, I would take this entire guard up here apart to access actually it took the entire hedge trimmer apart, which only required a torque screwdriver for the 3 screws to the brush and armature motor, and then on the side for the rest of the housing for the gear assembly just required a Phillips headed screwdriver. So I'd take that apart, I'd put some Marvel Mystery Oil, some red dye that always kind of looked like Faygo Red Pop on there, and try to get oil on the bearings, because over time those things would bind, especially if they sat long, and it would cause the teeth to grind. And if you tried to trim for very long with it grinding like that, it would eventually burn out the motor. But if you did that regular maintenance, These would last a long time. Obviously, if you look at this one here, this thing's at least 30 years old, and it still works. I've used it twice this season. It did a really good job for the light-duty work that I needed it to do. I probably pushed it a little harder even than I should, and it did a really good job. So that's just what I wanted to share on the Black & Decker 16-inch cut electric hedge trimmer. Hope you enjoyed this video and it was able to give you some kind of joy. We'll see you in another video. Thanks everybody, and good night from Brandon's World.